Hi, I'm Fega, and this is a D-Listers of History Sidebar, where we discuss the relevant history of current events.
I'll hold you above me, so if you can trust me, release.
Presidential candidate Nikki Haley got absolutely eviscerated this week over her comments about the causes of the Civil War.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Please, what was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was?
I'm not running for president. I wanted to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are. And I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. Government doesn't need to tell you how to live your life. They don't need to tell you what you can and can't do. They don't need to be a part of your life. They need to make sure that you have freedom. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Many people have, understandably, been shocked that in 2023 there are people who would not say the reason for the American Civil War was slavery. This especially from a former governor who oversaw the removal of the Confederate flag from the South Carolina Capitol. Nikki Haley did respond to all this criticism, by the way, and I think her response is pertinent.
Last night I was asked about the Civil War and what I think of the Civil War, what was the cause of the Civil War. Of course, the Civil War was about slavery. We know that. That's unquestioned, always the case. We know the Civil War was about slavery. But it was also more than that. It was about the freedoms of every individual. It was about the role of government. For 80 years, America had the decision and the moral question of whether slavery was a good thing and whether government, economically, culturally, any other reasons, had a role to play in that. By the grace of God, we did the right thing and slavery is no more. But the lessons of what that bigger issue with the Civil War are is that let's not forget what came out of that, which is government's role, individual liberties, freedom for every single person, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do and be anything you want to be without anyone or government getting in your way. That should be the goal of what we always try and take away from that, right? Because we never want to return back to that place. But we always want to remember the lesson of what it means to be a free individual and that everyone deserves to be a free individual. So we stand by that. I say that as a Southerner. I say that as a Southern governor who removed the Confederate flag off the State House grounds. And I say that as a proud American of how far we have come.
So she basically doubles down while acknowledging the importance of slavery in the equation. Many people have pointed out that she is probably trying to not alienate the far-right base of the GOP, but I think there's actually a little more to it than that. To understand where Haley's comments are coming from, we need to look at where she was raised and the unique way this particular topic was taught for a really long time and in some cases still is. Haley was born and raised in South Carolina. I don't know exactly what went on in her history classes. I think it's reasonable to suspect, based on her comments and her age, that she was likely taught the lost cause of the Confederacy myth. The lost cause of the Confederacy myth is an ahistorical movement to brand the reasons for the American Civil War as a disagreement over states' rights. There were a lot of people who brought this movement into being and fed it from 1866 until today, but I want to point out one particular person, and that's Caroline Meriwether Goodlett. Goodlett was one of the founding presidents of the United Daughters of the Confederacy and did so much to support this revision of history. The United Daughters of the Confederacy's first stated purpose was, quote, tell of the glorious fight against the greatest odds a nation ever faced, that their hallowed memory should never die, end quote. They supported Confederate veterans and their widows, but also created children's programming and supported the building of Confederate monuments. Because of Goodlet and her compatriots, a whole generation of children were taught an inaccurate account of the foundational reasons for the American Civil War. What we are taught as kids tends to wheedle its way into our general consciousness. Sometimes we don't even know how we know what we think we know. We are taught something in elementary school, and sometimes it just sticks in there. This is especially true for people who don't make a study of history. Goodlet's influence reaches all the way to today. We see her when Nikki Haley stands by this ahistorical myth, even though as a first-generation American, she certainly doesn't have family history wrapped up in the Confederacy. We also see it in current attempts by groups like Moms for Liberty and their like to control what history is taught to children and how. This is why it's really important to get involved in local politics and to be aware of what your school board is up to, even if you don't have kids.
Use the words like monkey bars, climb up onto the R's and the B's, and when you reach the top, relief.
Thanks for joining me on Delisters of History's Sidebar. Stay tuned next week for our interview with Lucas Zellers, where we talk about a British entomologist who single-handedly wiped out an entire species of moth in just a few years. That episode will be out January 8th. See you then.